Hello and welcome to First Team All Vibes, your favorite sports podcast with all of the best vibes. My name is Marissa. I am one of the hosts on this podcast, and you guys will notice I am the only host today. Unfortunately, me and Anthony were not able to record together this week, but I promised you guys last time. If you know, you know. If you're a real one, you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I promised last time that we skipped a week that we would not do that again. Okay, and I said if I have to show up here by myself, I will. And unfortunately, just due to our schedules this week, it's been crazy. It's the holidays. There's been a lot going on. We just were not able to record together this week. But, there's a lot to talk about this week. We have had the NBA Cup, and I kind of wanted to just get my reaction to that. Now, full disclosure, I am recording this before the semifinal Spurs Thunder game. So we do not have the results of that game. I will kind of talk about it a little bit, what I think the results will be. But we are going to get into all of the other games in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and I'm just going to dive into it and kind of give you guys my reaction, what I think about these teams as well, because, let's be honest, these are some of the best teams in both the West and the East. We didn't get everyone, we're not getting all of the top teams, but I did kind of just want to give my thoughts on how these games played out, and some surprising and non-surprising things that we can maybe take out of these games. So I do want to start with the East quarterfinals, and that was the Raptors-Knicks game. Now, me and Anthony, when we did do our preview of these NBA Cup games, we did both predict that the Knicks were probably going to come out of the East, which has proven to be true. So, that Raptors game, I was not really that surprised. The Knicks have been, I feel like, on an upward trajectory, and they've just been playing better and better. And the Raptors, it's kind of been the opposite. They obviously had a really strong start. I think that they were, number 2 in the East at some point. But unfortunately, that was kind of short-lived for them, and they've had some losses since then. Obviously, they are dealing with some injuries. I know that R.J. Barrett, I think, is still out for them. And they're one of those teams that has a lot of production from multiple guys. And I think that that's kind of sometimes a tough model to follow. Like in some cases, like if you're the Thunder, that's great for you, right? But it's difficult to maintain. And, I think that the Raptors are kind of going to be on an uphill battle to get to the top of the East. So, I wasn't really surprised that the Knicks were able to beat them. And I think they beat them by 17 points or something like that. So, I don't really think there's that much to take out of that game other than, the Knicks, again, they're on an upward trajectory and they are only getting better. I personally think that the coaching change and bringing in Mike Brown has been really good for them because, I heard them talking about it today, and this is kind of going to, I guess, be a spoiler of the next Knicks matchup against the Magic in the semifinals. But I heard them talking today on the post game with Jalen Brunson, and they were talking to him about how, last year he had one of the highest usage rates in the entire league, right? Like he always had the ball. And if I'm not incorrect, I actually think he also had one of the highest minutes in the entire league. And, that's kind of tough. And I saw that his usage rate is basically still the same, but the amount that he has the ball, like the time that he has the ball, is cut in half. Basically, he has it, I think it's a second or two less than he did last year as far as how long he's holding the ball at a time. And I think that they're kind of purposefully trying to be more, I guess, equal with the offensive kind of passing of the ball with everyone getting touches, all of that. And I think that that's been really good for the Knicks. I think that it's good for them to not have to lean so much on Brunson because, when you think about this team that I believe honestly should be favored to come out of the East in the actual playoffs, they're going to need that juice come playoff time. And, I think that that was an issue for them last year. So I think that this is really good and a good trend to see if you're a Knicks fan. And I don't know, I would not be surprised if, again, the Knicks do come out of the East, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to their semifinals matchup. But discussing the next quarterfinals matchup, that was Miami and the Magic. Now, I did catch about half of that game. I got the last half of that game. And, the Magic really have been improving a lot. Just their struggle has been staying healthy, right? And I think that that has been a consistent struggle for them. I did not really watch the Magic much last year, but I know that they also really struggled with their injuries. Like, obviously, Paulo Banchero, he just came back from injury, and he's still kind of in his ramp up stage, so he's not able to, I think, carry that huge offensive load that maybe he was able to carry before his injury. He's still kind of in that ramp up process, kind of getting his legs underneath him. And so I think that that's going to be a process for him. And, obviously, I think that it was in that game, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was before that game. I'm not 100% sure. But Wagner went down. And he has been a huge offensive engine for them. I really like him for some reason. I don't know what it is. You guys know this is a vibes podcast. I really don't even know how to explain it, but I just feel like I like his vibes. Maybe it's just because he's European and I feel like he might be like cool, some cool German guy. I know nothing about him personally, but yeah, I don't know. He seems cool. And obviously, he was a really big offensive factor for them. He was really one of their leading scorers. And, seeing him go down, I mean, I did unfortunately see that injury happen. And thank goodness. I don't know if you guys saw this game, that injury looked bad. Like, I straight up thought this guy definitely tore a ligament in his knee. Like, he fell super awkwardly and his knee, he was immediately grabbing at it and he couldn't get up for a while and they had to help him to the back and it just did not look good. And, I think that a lot of people feared for the worst, some kind of ligament tear or something like that. But fortunately, that was not the case. I think that he actually was just diagnosed with a high ankle sprain, and I believe that he's only going to be out for about a month, which is really, really good news. Obviously, you do not ever want to see any player, but much less one of the leading players on the team, go down with a really bad injury. And I'm sure that, for Magic fans, they're probably really breathing a sigh of relief that thank goodness that was not the case. They just got Paulo back, and now, Wagner's going to be gone. And he's still going to be gone for a while and we'll see how that affects them in the long run, like in the standings at the end of the day. But, it's definitely, I guess the silver lining there that at least the injury was not as bad as a lot of people maybe anticipated it to be. But, I think that this said a lot about both teams, that matchup between them and Miami. Like, obviously Desmond Bane is finally back, right? Like, this is why they freaking traded for him. I feel like in the beginning of the season, he just was not playing that well. And, he wasn't really hitting his shots. He wasn't really giving them that offensive firepower and especially hitting those threes, right? Like, the Magic were not a team that was really good at three-pointers, and that is why they got Desmond Bane to hit those threes. And in the beginning of the season, he just was not really doing that. And so I think that a lot of people were maybe kind of clowning the trade, saying like, that maybe they gave up too much for him and that it just wasn't worth it, that his addition was not, big enough and maybe monumental enough to kind of justify what was given up for him. But I think that he's proving that wrong. And, I give him my salute for that. I actually have seen some people say, like from, Grizzlies fans and stuff, that he always takes a while to ramp up every season. And that, people who have followed him before, they know that. And so they weren't really surprised that he's kind of now catching his stride. But I obviously think this is a great thing for Orlando. And, if they can eventually get Wagner healthy and Paulo back, and in his groove again, and Desmond Bane like all firing on all cylinders, I mean, they're gonna be a legitimate threat in the East. I don't know if they're necessarily gonna be able to come out of the East, just because I think that, there's actually been some decent teams in the East, but I do think that they could definitely make it to the second round, and maybe the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think there's a lot of, again, like silver lining when it comes to the Magic. And on that same page, the Heat, all I was thinking, honestly, watching that game is like, they really would be a good team for Giannis to land. And, you could argue about the fit, but I actually think that he would kind of fit well into that Miami system. Like their pace and, their physicality and the fact that they're already like always getting downhill. Like, can you imagine if you just added Giannis to that? And, I don't really know much about Heat and their like draft capital situation. I'm not really sure if they have a good enough package to offer to Milwaukee, but I did see today that, I don't even know who it was. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Someone was being interviewed and they're basically speaking on behalf of Giannis and talking about like what he has said, what he wants. And what this dude said was that Giannis does not have full control, obviously, about where he's going, but that his preference is that it would be somewhere in a nice sunny place, and it would be a big market that could, be competitive and actually compete for a championship, which, I think that we've already kind of heard, but I think that also that factor of like the heat, right? Like literally go to the heat, right? But I mean, obviously Miami, great weather. I'm sure that would be a welcome change after being in Milwaukee for so long. But also, the Heat they do have that championship culture. They do have that good system going. And I just think that they are just, they're missing that superstar. And, I know a lot of people thought that Tyler Hero, I think, would be that, but I just don't know if he's the right fit. And I think that maybe Giannis could be that right fit. So I don't know. It just got me thinking because I just don't think that Miami has that person. I feel like that's what they're missing, right? Like they need that consistent high scoring first option, and it's like, yeah, they get a lot of guys that can put up some points. And obviously they have Bam and they have Jaime Jaquez, which is, he's been kind of up and down, but he has been a really good piece for them. And obviously they did get Tyler Hero back. And, he's, I think, still working back from injury as well. But I just feel like they need something else. And so I do wonder, like, if Giannis does want to stay in the East and the Knicks do not have a good enough package or maybe an enticing enough package, could Miami potentially offer something better and be the ones to get him? I don't know. But I just think it's an interesting thought to think about. Now, moving over to the West quarterfinals, I want to actually start with the Spurs-Lakers game. Now, you guys know, if you watch this podcast and if you have eyes, or, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can obviously see behind me that I have my little Lakers posters. I am a Lakers fan, and Anthony, my co-host, he is a Spurs fan. So this was a big game for both of us. And, to be fair, we both actually predicted that the Lakers were going to win this game. I thought, they don't have Wemby. They're gonna probably win. They're fully healthy. But I will say that even the day of the game, me and Anthony were talking, and I told him, I was like, one thing I will say is that without Wemby, you guys are a lot faster. And you guys are young, and you're athletic, and you have a lot of people that can shoot threes. And that is something that the Lakers have struggled with. They have proven that when they are put in front of, very fast young teams that can shoot well and can shoot threes especially, that is not a good matchup for them. And sure enough, that is basically exactly what happened. Obviously, first and foremost, like, you have to give the Spurs their flowers. Like, they have been playing really well without Wemby, and I kind of even look at it as like the same way that I looked at the Lakers when they were missing LeBron and Luka for that little stretch of, they are still winning games, and you have to give that credit, and you have to say, like, that just shows something about this team. I do think that the Spurs at this point could be a legitimate, like, maybe I wouldn't favor them to go to the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, I think that they're still, like, not at that top tier, even in the West. Maybe not quite yet, just because I think that they're young and they're unexperienced. So I'm not really sure what would happen in the playoffs. But they are a legitimate team, and I do think that they're going to be a playoff team, which in the West is really saying something. And I remember at the beginning of the year, I think, have them at 6. That was my guess, is that's where they were going to fall, which could probably still happen. But I would not be shocked to see them higher than that. I don't think that they're going to be in the top 3 seeds just because the West is so freaking stacked. But I definitely would not be surprised if they were 4 or 5. I think that I'm interested to see how they integrate back Wemby. And, I told Anthony this after the game. I actually think that they would have been a better matchup with the Lakers if Wemby was playing, which might sound ridiculous because obviously Wemby is such a force of himself and he offers so many other challenges, but it just slows their game down a bit. And so I do wonder how they're going to kind of incorporate Wemby into a lot of their qualities that are good, which are that they're young and athletic and fast. And the fact that, what I've noticed, at least in the games that I've seen them play, is that Wemby does kind of naturally slow down their game a bit. So I kind of wonder where that balance is going to land of how do you balance like that speed and athleticism advantage with all of these young guards with the fact that you have this guy who's like this prolific, obviously your best player. So we'll see how that goes down. But I also wanted to talk about a little bit about the Lakers. Obviously, like I said, you guys know I'm a Lakers fan. You know that I obviously love a lot of things about this team, and I still very much believe in this team. But I think that I have to be completely honest about them, right? Like, I want to be able to be objective, and I want to really be able to call it like I see it, even if it's my team. And, I wouldn't say that this was surprising, maybe. Was it disappointing to watch them completely get basically their ass whooped by the Spurs? Yeah, it was disappointing. I did not think that that was going to happen. I actually did not. But I also didn't think that they were going to get their ass whooped by the Suns or by the Hospital Hawks, by the G League of the Hawks. And that also happened. I mean, obviously they got blown out by the Thunder, but I mean, who isn't getting blown out by the Thunder? And we're going to get to that next. But I think that the bottom line with the Lakers is just like, they just do not have a well-balanced roster. And it's, it sucks because I think that they have a lot of potential. And like, obviously the big three, like, Luka, Austin, and LeBron have so much potential as a trio. But it's just like, we do not have good enough defensive pieces to back them up. And we don't have that much to work with as far as like bargaining chips and draft capital and trade assets. And so, it's kind of a challenge, I think. And I do think that this is kind of going to force them to say, like, we have to make a move at the deadline. And I would not be surprised if they do. The Lakers are consistently getting run out of the gym. They do not have athleticism. They do not have, naturally fast, athletically gifted players. Like, I mean, basically the best, obviously, defensive piece that we have is Marcus Smart. And he's great, but he is one player and he's injury prone and he's missed a lot of games for us already. And if we did not have him in that Spurs game, we'd probably be down by 30. We might have been the Suns with the freaking Thunder being beat by 50. Probably not would have been that bad, but I just, we cannot consistently depend on this dude to carry the entire defensive load. Obviously, you could argue, like, in our starting lineup, that's another big problem for the Lakers, right? The starters I think that they have a negative plus minus. And it's just because we do not have a good defensive presence in that starting lineup. A lot of people have argued that Rui Hachimura should be moved to the bench. At this point, probably in favor of Marcus Smart. But again, the problem with that is that Marcus Smart is just not consistently healthy. And, I think that it could be argued that they don't necessarily want to put that load on him to have to be a starter. But I think that there could be a way to make it work. Now, that's not to say that Rui Hachimura has done anything wrong. Rui is a great shooter. In fact, I think that he's in the top 5 of shooting percentage this year. He is an amazing catch and shoot 3-point shooter. And he also has a lethal little, mid-range game. Honestly, every single time that Rui shoots the ball, I genuinely think that it's probably going to go in. And I mean, that says a lot. But he's forced out of position in the starting lineup. And I think that that's a big problem for the Lakers, that almost all of those guys are being forced out of position defensively, because you have LeBron, Luka, and Rui, who really all should be guarding fours. They're all fours. And so, you have Rui having to be the wing defender. That is not his natural position, and he's just not very good at it. He's not a very, good defensive-minded player. He makes mistakes, he gets lost, and again, this is not to throw shade at Rui. It just seems obvious to me that you're not going to bench Luka, right? Like, you're not going to bench Austin, who, by the way, is also being forced out of position. They have consistently had Austin Reeves having to guard the point of attack on the other team. He is having to guard Fox. He is having to guard Tyrese Maxey. And it's just, he should not be doing that. Austin is actually, I think, an underrated defender. I think that a lot of people think he's just a bad defender. I actually don't think that he's a bad defender. He's better at chasing, right? He's better at guarding the Steph Curry type, not these super aggressive guards that can get downhill and just barbecue chicken him. That is not what he should be doing. He's a little bit undersized to be doing that. First of all, he's not super small. I mean, he's 6'5", I think, but he's just not super beefed up or super big, literally tall enough to be able to handle that assignment. And he should not be doing that. That is out of position for him, right? And so I just think that it's very obvious that we need a better starting three. We need some kind of 3 and D who can guard, the best player on the opposing team. Obviously, that does not just, appear in a cloud of smoke. That's, everyone wants that, right? Every single team in the NBA needs that kind of player, and they do not come cheap. We have one first-round draft pick to offer until the summer, and then we'll have 2 more that open up. But those are not even very valuable, right? Because the team is now owned by Mark Walker, and it has Luka freaking Doncic as the franchise cornerstone. So yeah, I think that most teams are smart enough to realize you guys are not going to be a lottery team. And this pick is not going to be worth as much as a lot of other teams' picks. So, it's kind of a difficult situation, I think. And I'm very interested to see how Rob Pelinka makes this work. And I also think that in a lot of ways, this is maybe an audition for him. He did get an extension. I will note they did extend his contract. They also extended JJ Redick's contract. But Mark Walker is the new guy in town. And we all know, or at least I know at this point, even though I don't watch baseball, that baseball, that he has completely reset the tone for the Dodgers, and that he has made them into not only an incredible team on the field, but an incredible, system with great pieces in every single level of that organization from GM down, right? And so I would not be surprised if he's kind of watching what Rob Pelinka is able to do and asking himself, like, am I really going to be happy with this guy? And for the record also, right now, he is president of basketball operations and also the general manager. So my question is, maybe you keep Rob Pelinka as the president of basketball operations, but maybe you get a different GM, right? Like, go to Sam Presti's door and offer him a blank check, right? Obviously, in baseball, you can offer the players a blank check. You cannot do that in basketball, right? Like, you have to obey by the CBA. And so you have to have the right people in place that can outsmart it, right? That can chess piece around it, just like Sam Presti and, a few other GMs have been able to do. And so, we'll see what they're able to do, but I just think that it's extremely obvious. And I honestly think that the team knows. I think that JJ Redick knows. We just do not have the personnel to be a great defense. Like, we do not have the right pieces. Should somebody else be starting for Rui? Yeah, probably. And it's not because Rui's not good, and it's not because he deserves to be demoted or something, but it's just because he is not the right fit defensively. And it forces everyone out of position when we do not have somebody to guard the best player. When we do not have somebody to be a wing defender. It's a difficult situation. And again, I think that the Lakers still have a lot of potential. Right now, I believe that they're tied for the 4 seed with that loss against San Antonio. Actually, I think they're tied with San Antonio for that 4 seed, with the Nuggets, Rockets, and Thunder above them. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation, and I'm interested to see what the Lakers do at the trade deadline, because I just feel like at this point it's glaringly obvious. Like, I think that they can still rack up wins in the regular season, and I still think that they are like a fringe contender. But in order to make real noise in the playoffs, I feel like they have to get a better defensive piece. One good thing about the Lakers is that they do have a lot of expiring contracts. They're just not the greatest contracts, and they're not with the best players, right? Like, it's not like we have like a buttload of picks and a buttload of like amazing players to offer, right? Not horrible players, but some of them just do not have the best value, right? Or maybe even a positive value. So it's going to be an interesting thing for the Lakers to navigate, but I do feel like it's important to kind of point out that the team as constructed is just not very well constructed. It's seriously lacking in athleticism and speed and defensive presence, and we just have a ton of kind of one-way players. We have amazing offense, usually. Even our bench scoring, though, is very lacking, but there needs to be more balance in the Lakers lineup. So that's my comment on the Lakers. I still believe in them. If you told me at the end of the year that they somehow beat the Thunder and that they won the championship, I would not be shocked. But I think that I would be really, 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 really shocked if that happened without them making a move at the deadline. So we will see what happens with that, but those are kind of my comments on the Lakers. So let's move on to the final quarterfinals matchup, which was the Thunder Suns game. And I started watching this game. I watched kind of like, I guess, 75% of the first quarter, and then I stopped watching. And I kind of want to get into this because I actually think that this is kind of my biggest bone to pick with OKC. And it has nothing to do with their play as far as like being a good team. Obviously, what was the outcome of that game? The Thunder completely blew out and, dare I say, obliterated the Suns. They literally beat them by 50 points. I mean, that's just crazy. I checked the score in the fourth quarter. I sent a screenshot to Anthony and I was like, bruh, this is crazy. Like, this is not normal. Like, for a team to be blowing another team out by 50, and that team is not a lottery team, that's actually a decent team. By the way, the same team that took them all the way into the fourth quarter last time they played. That is just insane to think about. Granted, I will give the Suns credit. Like, they were obviously down Devin Booker. He is injured right now. And, we all know, like, if your best player is down, I mean, that's going to be a problem, especially if you're playing against the Thunder. And, Dillon Brooks has been playing really well, but I don't think that he's capable of putting up insane numbers consistently every single night as like the first option, especially against a team like the Thunder, when at that point you become the target, right? For their all-time historic defense. But what I really want to discuss about the Thunder is that, in my opinion, and obviously this is just my opinion, but I'm actually really interested to see how other people feel about this. They are such a hard team to watch, and it is not fun to watch them. And I kind of want to explain why. I want to preface this by saying that this is not saying that the Thunder are not an amazing team. They are clearly a historically great team. I mean, the Thunder, I think, are like 25 or 26-1 at this point. They literally have only lost one game. Obviously, they are on pace right now to beat the Warriors for the season wins record. And I would not be surprised if that happens. But the issue for me about the Thunder is that they are too good. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like, for me personally, the thing that is entertaining about basketball is the competitive aspect. It's the fact that, these teams like that are really good, they are neck and neck with each other. They have like these back and forth games where it's really competitive and, you don't necessarily know who's going to win. And yeah, that's not the case every night, right? Sometimes you see blowouts all the time and, you see double-digit leads and, you see all these things. But usually, typically, and I mean, I think that this has still been seen across, the other top teams. If you have two good teams that are playing each other, it's probably mostly back and forth. Even if one team is consistently up, like maybe 10 or whatever, or, they have like a consistent lead throughout the game, or at the end of the game, one team pulls away, it's still a fun game to watch. In my opinion, it is not fun to watch blowout games. That is just not fun to me. Like, that is just sad. That is not entertaining. If your stars are not playing fourth quarters, I do not think that that is a good basketball product. Like, purely from an entertainment standpoint. Not saying that they are a bad team. In fact, again, I think that this is actually a result of them being so good, right? It's almost like they're so good that it's not even fun anymore. And even, I would like to imagine that even if I was a Thunder fan, that would not be fun for me, right? Every once in a while, I can say like, okay, yeah, that would be fun to watch them blow out a team so bad that the stars are able to sit the fourth quarter. And of course, I can see the value as far as like long-term rest and, not exerting your stars too much so that they're more likely to stay healthy and more likely to have more energy and kind of gusto for the playoffs. But to watch games and just know that they're going to be up 20 potentially in the first quarter, I just don't see how that's fun anymore. I have tried to watch multiple Thunders games. I legitimately have. I have watched them play, again, decent teams. But I just feel like every single time I end up turning off the game because the Thunder are just so dominant that it's not even fun anymore. And I will say that I think that maybe part of it is just the style that the Thunder play. It's just not as interesting, I guess, which not to say that that's like, again, you could argue that basic basketball, just basics, right, are good. Fundamentals, right? Maybe that's the better word. If you are utilizing fundamentals and you're getting multiple people involved and you have such a stacked roster that multiple people can have good scoring games on any given night, that's a good thing, right? And it's clearly working for them, right? I cannot sit here and say that it's a bad formula for them. I cannot sit here and criticize anything about the way that they're playing in the fact that it leads to wins, right? Clearly, it leads to wins. And I mean, last year, it led to a championship. Might lead to a championship again. But I just think that purely from an entertainment standpoint, it's not fun to know that there is a team that is so good that they are impossible to beat. And not only are they impossible to beat, they're blowing out everyone. I mean, maybe not everyone. Obviously, there's been some competitive games. Somehow the Blazers freaking beat them. But even the Blazers in that same game were down 20 at one point. If I was watching that game, I probably would have turned it off. Because I do not want to watch a team consistently beating teams by 20. That's just not fun to me anymore, right? Like, I feel like when I think about these other historically great teams, and yes, I was not a consistent basketball watcher at the time, right? But when I think about teams like, let's just say the Warriors, right? This other historically great team who still currently has the record for all-time season wins. I think that there is something about the Warriors that is different because their play style, in my opinion, is way more fun to watch. And I also think that the players themselves are just a little bit more likable. I don't know what it is about OKC. Shea, for me, he is a great player and he seems like a good person. Obviously, he's an amazing player. I mean, he is super efficient. He makes good decisions constantly, and it seems like he's constantly getting better. I mean, there's a reason that he won MVP last year, right? But just the way that he plays, it's just not that fun to watch to me. Again, it's just not very entertaining, right? When I look at someone like Shea, and then I look at someone like Steph Curry is infinitely funner to watch. So if you were to ask me, who would I rather watch in a blowout, right? I would rather watch Steph Curry. And I know that one of the main reasons that the Thunder even wins so much all the time is because of their defense. And I know that obviously defense is super important and defense can be fun to watch, but I just think that overall, let's be honest, what are the highlights? Adam Silver claims that this is a highlight league. What are the highlights? They are offensive highlights. It's extremely rare that you see defensive highlights unless it is somebody like doing an insane block. I mean, even if you were seeing somebody like super lock somebody up, it is extremely rare that you see highlights of that. And it's just because it's not as entertaining to watch, right? Like, what's entertaining to watch is the fun offense. And I will say that I know that that is kind of one of like the few flaws that the Thunder have, is that sometimes in games they go through like small stretches of kind of not having as much offensive output. But the defense is just so insanely good that it almost doesn't matter because they're able to get so many stops. They're able to like get so many steals and, make so much happen on the defensive end and shut people off so well in the defensive end that they're still demoralizing, even when they aren't scoring. But again, I just think that for me, the reason that I started watching the NBA was because it was entertaining to me and because it was fun to watch these teams compete. And again, yes, I'm a Lakers fan, but I enjoy watching pretty much all of the other good teams. I can watch the Nuggets and the Rockets and enjoy that so much, right? I can enjoy the Spurs playing, let's just say the Suns or the Timberwolves or the Warriors or any of these other teams, right? Like the Knicks Magic game. All of these other games I genuinely enjoy. But I just do not enjoy watching the Thunder. And again, that's not me trying to throw shade on them. I just think that it's a genuine thing to think about of like, damn, it does not bother me so much that it's like, oh, this is a historically great team that is so good that they might become a dynasty and won multiple championships and kind of everyone else is just at their mercy and kind of has to deal with it. That would not bother me so much if they were more entertaining to watch. But I just feel like if the Thunder just go into the playoffs and just sweep everybody, which obviously a lot of people are thinking like, will they even go to a game 7 this year? Because they're clearly better this year. And yeah, a lot of other teams are too. And I don't think that they're unbeatable, right? And you never know what's going to happen as far as health and injury. And hey, that historic season, winning, that historic season game winning Warriors team did not win the championship, right? So you never know what's going to happen. But it's still just like, there's 82 games. There's a million games to watch really overall, right? But every single team has 82 games. And every single time I have watched the Thunder play, I am bored. I am straight up bored. And I end up turning off the game. Not out of hate, not out of saying, oh my God, the Thunder are so annoying because they're so good, but because it's boring. Like, there is nothing fun, in my opinion, about watching a team that is so much better than every other team that it's not even competitive. The competitive aspect is what makes it fun, right? The flashiness of, some of these players is what makes it fun, in my opinion. Again, I'm not saying that this is like the end all be all. A lot of people might disagree with me, but I, again, would like to even think that if I was an OKC fan, I would probably not really watch a lot of games because I do not think that they're that entertaining. If you know that your team is most likely going to beat that other team by 20 points, is it really fun to watch anymore? If your star players are not, playing half fourth quarters, why are you going to finish the game? And, again, I don't know. If you were to say, like, if the Lakers were not playing their stars in the fourth quarter of 90% of games, I would not be watching those fourth quarters. Honestly, I probably would not. If they were dominating teams so much, I would not be finishing games. And this is the team that I love, right? Like, this is my team, and I still probably would not be watching those whole games. So that's just kind of my take on the Thunder, and it really made me think about it when I was watching that Suns game, because I was just like, this is just sad. This is just unentertaining. Like, this is just, in my opinion, like, if you were to say, like, are they amazing at the sport? Yes. They're absolutely incredible at the sport of basketball. They're a perfectly constructed team. The problem is, there is no other perfectly constructed team. Maybe if there was another team that was on that level, and you could say, like, or maybe even hopefully multiple teams that were as good as them, or at least maybe even close, well then yeah, that would be fun because there's still some aspect of competitiveness. And I'm hoping, like, I really am hoping that once we see, like, the Nuggets, the Rockets, obviously the Rockets took them to double OT. I'm interested to see them play again. The Nuggets, even the Spurs game, coming back to the, the NBA Cup thing, I'm not going to lie to you. I will be shocked at this point if the Thunder do not win it. Do I think that the Knicks could beat the Thunder? I don't. I really don't. Do I think that the Spurs can beat the Thunder? No, I don't. And that's not because I don't think that both of those teams are not really good. I would much prefer to see a matchup between the Spurs and the Knicks than the Thunder and the Knicks, because I just, at this point, do not trust that it's going to be a competitive game. And I think that that's sad because it makes me kind of dread watching the Thunder, because I just feel like it's not going to be a fun game to watch. And that's what it comes down to. It's not even about hating the Thunder or shading them at all as far as their game is concerned. It's just about, like, trying to be a fan of basketball and wanting to have fun watching games and wanting to be entertained. And if your stars are out by the fourth quarter, like, once again, if you are beating a team by 20, that's just not fun to watch. That's not fun to watch. It's not fun to think that this is a really good team that you're playing against. Not the Thunder, right? Like, they're maybe the historically great team. If you are playing against a really good team and I still don't think it's going to be a good game, that just makes me kind of sad as a basketball fan. So that's my take. My opinion right now, again, I don't think the Spurs, obviously, as of right now, the Spurs Thunder game has not finished. I'm going to check the score. I think that it maybe already started. Let's see. It's 4:10 Thunder right now, so it just started. There's 9 minutes still left in the first quarter. Obviously, we will follow up on it this week when we do our episode of who ends up winning. I believe that the championship is on Tuesday, and of course, that game does not count for the record, which maybe that's a good thing if the Thunder win, because God, we do not need another friggin' win for the Thunder. But yeah, that's just kind of my take on it. Again, I will be shocked if the Spurs are able to win this game, even though the Spurs are a really good team. I will be shocked if the Knicks are able to beat the Thunder, even though the Knicks are a really good team. Like, at this point, it's not even about shading these teams. It's about the frustration of feeling like there is no competitiveness when it comes to playing OKC. Maybe there will be, like, on 1 out of 10 games, maybe that's even generous. Maybe 1 out of 15 games is probably a more accurate, like, statistic. But that's just not fun basketball to me. So that's my take. That's my rant, but I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to think about this. What did you guys think about all of these matchups? Who do you think is going to win this Spurs Thunder game? Who do you think is going to win it all? Do you think that the Knicks would have a chance against the Thunder? I mean, you could say that could potentially be like the actual final matchup, right? If the Thunder really do just trailblaze through the West and no one is able to beat them, and the Knicks maybe could be favored to come out of the East at this point, which I think they maybe should be at this point. Do you think that will even be competitive, right? And I guess we'll have to see. If the Knicks end up beating the Thunder in the freaking Cup championship, I will be so happy. I would love that. Honestly, I would actually love that, because again, I want to see competition. Like, I want the Thunder to have to compete, right? Like, I don't know. Again, it's just not fun for me to see them walk through every single team seemingly with barely even trying, because they are just so stacked and they're just so good and they just have this perfectly built team, Yeah. And again, if you're on the Thunder, I'm sure you're perfectly happy with the way this is playing out, and I don't blame you. I probably would be too. But as a fan, I wish that it was just more competitive and a little more fun to watch, and there was a little more nuance to it, But we'll see. You never know what's going to happen. Like I said, you never, every single thing is uncertain. It's barely December and we still have a lot of basketball to be played. And yeah, you never know what's going to happen. So I could be biting my words on this in a few, games time, or a few months time, or once the playoffs come. You literally never know. I mean, it could be that the Thunder, play a team that ends up knocking them out in the first round. And do I find that likely at all? No. I find that extremely unlikely. There's probably a 3%, maybe 1% chance that happens, but you never know. So we'll see. I hope that this Spurs OKC game is competitive. I hope that maybe the Spurs or the Knicks are able to beat them in the NBA Cup, but we will see. And yeah, I just hope for more competition with the Thunder. I hope that there's able to be more competitive games, because if the Thunder win and it is a super close game, that doesn't bother me as much. But when they are blowing out people by 20, it's just not fun anymore. It's just not fun anymore. So that's my take. Again, let me know what you guys think. If you made it all the way to the end, you were a real one. Anthony will be back on the next one, but I hope you guys enjoyed my little solo expedition episode of me just yapping about all my NBA Cup thoughts. But I wanted to get it out for you guys. Wanted to get you some content so we can discuss what's been going on. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure that you subscribe to this channel. If you are not already subscribed, please, 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 please do so. If you are not watching us, you can be. We are First Team All Vibes on YouTube, on Instagram, and on TikTok, by the way. So you should follow, like, subscribe, do all the stuff. I know you guys know what to do. Like, you guys have heard it a million times, but it really makes a huge difference for us. Like, it literally takes one little click for you guys and makes a huge difference for us if you guys just like the video. If you just leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which we are also First Team All Vibes. If you prefer to do a little podcast action and you don't want to have the video open, that's not a problem. And I support that. But please do all this stuff. It really, really means a lot. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because I genuinely really want to hear if I'm the only one that feels like this about these teams. But yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week. Bye.